The carnivore diet has been wildly successful for me. I've been on the carnivore for over 5 years now, but it wasn't always that easy. The transition could be very difficult. Today, I'm going to share with you 40 tips to help you transition to the carnivore diet. Follow these rules and it'll greatly increase your chances of success. I'm Ryan Sahlberg, a retired Marine Corps infantry officer and carnivore enthusiast. I've been on the carnivore diet for over 5 years, so let's dive in. So we're going to cover multiple areas. So let's start with the foundation of mindset and personality. For the first rule, you need to know what type of personality you are. Best-selling author Gretchen Rubin, she describes 2 types of personalities when it comes to making lifestyle changes. The first is abstainers, which is someone going cold turkey, just, dropping a habit and never looking back. And then the second is a moderator, somebody who can kind of cycle slowly back and just scale it back little by little. So it's important to learn what type of personality you are. For me, I'm an abstainer 100%. I'd say the majority of people are abstainers, but if you are a moderator, that might be an easy way. So just figure out what works for you. Next is adopting the right mindset. Just tell yourself that there isn't an option, that you have to do this. Don't look at menu items. Don't look at other options. Just tell yourself, I'm going carnivore and I'm not doing anything else, and this is what I can eat. And just don't even think about it. I know it sounds easy, but just think that way and it'll be much easier to adapt to the carnivore diet. All right, the next rule is a big one. So just take everything meal by meal. So just focus on getting to that next meal. And then when you get to that point, just focus on the next meal. So when I was in boot camp for the Marine Corps over 20 years ago, we would just say, take it chow to chow, meaning all we'd have to do is get through the day, breakfast, and then we just focus on getting to lunch. And then when we got to lunch, we'd focus on just getting to dinner. And then when you got to dinner, you just focused on going to sleep. I know it sounds very tedious, but when you break it down like that and you just look from meal to meal, it is so much easier to accomplish your goal. So the next thing is don't get discouraged about weight. Everybody's body adapts differently. For me, I was just losing the pounds. For some people, they can go carnivore for 3 weeks and not lose a pound. Their bodies might take a while to adapt, but then once they do adapt, they'll just start dropping weight after that. So don't look at the scale to see if you made any improvements. Just focus on you and sticking to the diet. All right, next, you want to track your progress and write down all the meals you eat. Just keep a journal. That way you can look back and see what worked and what didn't. You don't have to just store it in your memory bank. If you have a bad day, like if you don't feel well, something you ate, you can write that down and then you'll know for the future. If something made you feel great or made you feel energized, you have it down on paper so you can go back to that. You're just keeping track of what works and what didn't, and generally how much you've been eating every day. So next we're going to focus on social navigation and support. First rule is you need to resist the peer pressure. When people see you trying to better yourself and dieting like this, they're going to want to bring you down to their level because it's easier for people to bring you down than it is for them to rise to your level. So they're going to try to tempt you into eating badly. They're going to try to get you to eat snacks, and the peer pressure can really amount to something. For me personally, I have close relatives that try to get me to eat bad. I mean, I've been doing this diet for 5 years, and I still have people trying to get me to eat sweets and other stuff. Next, you want to eat alone if you need to. Not just because of the peer pressure, but just because of the meals people are eating. It might tempt you, and you don't want to be tempted at this point. So if you have to, just eat your meals alone. If you have a family, they'll understand what you're trying to do. When you've built up the willpower and you make some progress in your diet, then you can rejoin them. However, for some people, this might not bother them at all. All right, next you want to follow some carnivore mentors. There are some great sources of carnivore on YouTube, X, Facebook, all those sources. Some of the ones I like personally, Dr. Anthony Chaffee, Ken Berry, Sean Baker, they're all good sources. Next, you want to join some carnivore communities. I'm a member of multiple carnivore communities on Facebook. These places offer great advice, or if you have questions for people, they can offer you good answers, but it's just a good way to get support for what you are doing. Also, just be aware, everyone does carnivore differently, so there can be some negative people on there. So just strictly go there for the support from the people that are being positive. Next, you want to navigate restaurants very carefully. Just avoid eating out altogether if you can. There's multiple reasons not to eat out. It's expensive. The food they use is terrible. The food's all the same across most restaurants anyways. So, I mean, what are you really paying for? But most of these restaurants are going to cook their food in seed oil. I would recommend just avoiding eating out altogether. However, if you are going to eat out, pick your restaurants carefully. And if you don't see any good options on the menu, either don't eat, or just get the most basic thing you can that's carnivore. Just look for a regular steak. I would just avoid it altogether. Also, be very cautious of chicken wings. Most restaurants are going to cook their chicken wings in seed oils. We'll talk more about seed oils later on. If they cook their chicken wings in beef tallow or even maybe lard, then just go for it. But other than that, I would not eat chicken wings. Now we're going to discuss your diet approach and flexibility. First rule, decide what strictness level you are going to go with. This is all up to you to decide. So there are multiple levels of carnivore that you can do. At the one extreme, there's the lion diet, which is strictly beef, salt, and water. Not many people are going to want to go that strict. And then there's other variations of carnivore. They call it carnivore dirty or something like that, or even borderline keto. But the point is, figure out what works best for you. Don't care about what other people say. It's all up to you and what you decide. All right, next, I would set specific cheat dates. So cheat dates will kind of give you something to look forward to. And it sets parameters for when you're going to eat strict carnivore and when you're not going to eat strict carnivore. So me, for example, I eat birthday cake on my birthday, my wife's birthday, and my 2 stepkids' birthdays. I eat an all-out meal on Thanksgiving and Christmas, and that's it. Outside of those, I stick to my carnivore diet. So I would recommend setting those specific cheat dates. Next rule is I would season strategically. Decide what you want to do for seasoning. For me, I went just straight to salt and nothing else. Now, if you're a moderator, you can maybe scale things back little by little. But for me, I just had to go straight to salt. But just figure out what works best for you. If you need to start using seasonings first and then just slowly dialing it back to salt and pepper and then just dialing it back to salt, whatever it is. Again, you decide what works for you. Now we're going to discuss the core foods on the carnivore diet. First thing, red meat is king. Red meat is so nutritious that you're going to want to eat it. Being on the carnivore diet, that's where you're going to derive most of your nutrients. If you don't like red meat, I would recommend that you learn how to like red meat. But if not, you can do other things. You can just eat a lot of chicken. But I'm not going to lie, it's going to be a lot harder for you not eating red meat than it is to eat red meat. Your body craves red meat. There was a study in 2013 titled Meat and Nicotinamide, titled A Casual Role in Human Evolution, History, and Demographics. And this study showed that red meat played a crucial role in our evolution. Another study titled The Last Craving, a comprehensive study on meat cravings and terminal illness, trauma, and evolutionary memory, that provided evidence that humans crave red meat during terminal illness. Bottom line, red meat is a staple on the carnivore diet. Don't get wrapped up in grass-fed versus grain-fed. Yes, grass-fed is going to be better, but just do what works for you. Next, ground beef. Ground beef is going to be a staple of your diet, and it's a good alternative to steak. Not everybody can afford to eat steak every day, but ground beef is affordable. It's an excellent source that makes carnivore accessible to everyone. Next, eat organ meats. Organ meats are loaded in nutrition. The amount of vitamin A in beef liver is astronomical. There is more vitamin A in beef liver than any other food source on the planet, and it's not even close. I love organ meats. They might be a little hard to overcome for some people, but if you can, it is definitely important to eat those. I eat beef liver, beef testicle, beef heart, adrenal gland, which, caution, if you do eat adrenal gland, be very careful, because if you eat too much, you can get violently ill. I did not heed this warning the first time I made adrenal gland, and I ate a lot of it. Within an hour, I was violently puking. So I would recommend not eating any more than a pill-size shape of adrenal gland. Next, drink bone broth. Bone broth is loaded in collagen, vitamins, and minerals. And this can help you get through the keto flu, which we'll talk about here shortly. Don't fear fatty cuts. If you're on carnivore, fat is going to be your lifeline. You're going to want to eat as much fat as you possibly can. Remember, we're not eating carbohydrates, so we need to get that energy from somewhere. So don't be afraid of fat, especially when you're coming to eat a steak or some ground beef. You want to go for those fattier cuts, but we want fat when we're on the carnivore diet. So that is what you eat. Now let's talk about what you cook your food in. We're going to talk about animal fats and cooking oils. So always cook in animal fats. Beef tallow, ghee, butter, and if you need to, lard. But just keep it to animal fats. Avoid seed oils at all costs. A 2002 study showed that seed oils have a high omega-6 to omega-3 ratio, which that can be a leading indicator for cardiovascular disease. That can be a risk for heart disease, cancer, and even autoimmune diseases. They're very inflammatory. In my personal opinion, tallow is best for cooking. It has a high burn point, it doesn't have a taste, it's just a neutral taste, and everything can cook in it very well. So beef tallow is king for me. That's what I cook most of my food in. I would recommend buying beef tallow in bulk. I buy one online from Walmart, and I'll put the link in the description. But if you go to the grocery store, there's a good chance they won't have it at all. But even if they do have it at your grocery store, it's probably just a little small jar. So you can buy them in bulk on Amazon or Walmart. The container I buy is about this big, so it lasts me at least a month or two. So before I talked about avoiding chicken wings at a restaurant, but now I want to tell you that you should fry your own chicken wings at home in beef tallow. It can be expensive because you're going to go through a lot of beef tallow, but they are delicious. And if you are looking for options instead of just eating red meat all the time, chicken wings fried in beef tallow can be a great alternative. I love doing it. And the chicken wings I make at home fried in beef tallow are better than any restaurant's chicken wings, and I guarantee that. And all I have is the chicken wings fried in tallow, and then I put some salt on them, and sometimes I put some butter on them, and that's it. So now we're going to talk about how to cook your food and essential equipment that you'll need. Learn multiple methods to cook a steak. You can do reverse sear, you can do broil, you can just cook it on an iron skillet, you can grill it if you want to, you can get an indoor grill. There are so many ways you could cook a steak. For me, the way I used it when I first started out, I would do reverse sear. So that's where I'd put it in the oven at about 250 degrees for 20 minutes. And when I took it out, I put it on an iron skillet that was heated up for about a minute on each side. But starting out, you're going to want to change it up how you cook it because it can definitely make the taste different. It brings out different flavors in the steak. Also, if you don't like cooking, an indoor grill is a fantastic piece of equipment that you can use. You just set up the grill, put your steaks in it, you stick a thermometer in one of the steaks, you set whether you want it rare, medium rare, whatever, and then cook it. And then once it hits a certain degree in the steak, it'll be done and the grill will shut off and you got steaks cooked to exactly how you want them. And I cook my eggs in a stainless steel pan. You're going to want to throw out that Teflon pan you have. There's all sorts of health issues associated with those. For me personally, I just stick to stainless steel and an iron skillet. Also, you want to buy a meat thermometer. Now, you can get one of these for $10 or less. So that way you can cook the steak to your exact specifications. If you like it rare, you'll know exactly when it's ready. If you like it well done, you'll know how long it takes to cook a steak well done. But it's essential to get a meat thermometer. You're going to use it for everything. Another tip to help you get through to transition to carnivore is learn to cook eggs in multiple ways. Cooking eggs differently brings out a whole new flavor that makes it taste like a completely different food. For example, eating eggs scrambled versus over easy almost feels like two different foods. But eggs are a great way to get through the day when you're transitioning. So learn how to cook eggs multiple ways. There's also learning to hard boil, soft boil, poached eggs. There's all kinds of ways you can cook eggs. Another great tool that I bought was a dehydrator. So I highly recommend you buy a dehydrator. I dehydrate food all the time. They're cheap. I use it once to twice a week. I dehydrate beef liver. I dehydrate beef heart. I make chicken dehydrated for my dogs. I use it consistently. So it can be a nice way to make a snack. You can make beef jerky. If you have a hard time eating organ meats, you can make dehydrated liver, and that'll be a much easier to eat. Dehydrated beef heart. If it's going to get you through and help you transition to the carnivore diet, I recommend using other seasonings when you make jerky or anything like that. Now, while red meat will be the core of your carnivore diet, let's talk about other meats you can eat to help you get you transitioned. Now we're going to talk about some transition helpers and variety to help you transition. So starting off with fish. Fish can be a great way to supplement your diet when you're trying to transition to the carnivore. However, I would just be cautious of eating a lot of bigger fish. Studies have shown that they're higher in heavy metals like mercury, lead. So if you're going to eat fish, I would recommend staying to the smaller size fish like sardines. Sardines can be a great way to help you transition, but I would just recommend sticking to the ones that have nothing, but they're just in water. And just eating regular fish once every now and then isn't going to hurt you. So starting out on carnivore, I would ensure variety and being adventurous. So today, 99% of what I eat is steak and eggs. That's all I eat. That's all I care to eat. I don't want to eat anything else. But it wasn't always that way. In the first couple of months, I was changing it up all the time. I would eat salmon one day, I'd eat steak one day, I'd eat pork one day, I'd eat chicken one day, because I just needed that variety to help get me through to transition to the carnivore diet. But now I don't need it. When you're starting out, I would highly recommend eating a variety of foods. Also, you can get fancy with it. I used to make carnivore pizza all the time. If you're looking for a good carnivore pizza recipe, just go on YouTube and type in carnivore pizza. There are thousands of recipes, so I won't share one here today. But I used to make a carnivore pizza and you could barely tell that it wasn't a regular pizza. So if that's going to help you transition, I would recommend making carnivore pizza. Also, try every kind of meat you can find and see what you like. So again, when I started out, I tried elk, I tried venison. I kind of figured out what works for me. And what I did find out, lamb, I'm sure it's good, but I could just not figure out how to cook it right. Every time I cooked it and ate it, I would just get a stomach ache. If you know how to cook, maybe lamb would be a good alternative to beef. Another thing that helped me transition to carnivore is I use natural aids to help ease the cravings. So what I mean by that is just looking for the most natural thing possible that's going to kill any cravings I have for sweets. So for example, what worked for me was I would drink decaf coffee with heavy whipping cream in it. So I know coffee's not carnivore, but it is natural. And I mean, if you get good quality coffee, that's even better. And then heavy whipping cream, some people include it in their diet and some people don't. But anyways, I use that and I drink it throughout the day and throughout the evening. And then eventually I lost my cravings. So it didn't really matter. And then eventually I stopped drinking heavy whipping cream. I do still drink coffee. That's just a personal choice. But I don't drink it with anything in it anymore. Next, we're going to talk about carnivore ice cream. So if you have a sweet tooth and you're always craving sweets, carnivore ice cream would be a great tool you can use to get over your cravings. So what is it exactly? Well, again, that varies by the person. But basically, you're making ice cream based on a carnivore diet. So when I would make it, I'd use things like eggs, heavy whipping cream, raw milk, and then sometimes I'd use xylitol or even just regular cane sugar. But again, this is just something to get through that transition to help you. You know, it's not something you want to do long term on the carnivore diet. There are thousands of recipes on Reddit, YouTube, Facebook. You can find them for carnivore ice cream everywhere. A lot of people use raw honey in their carnivore ice cream. And some people even consider raw honey carnivore because, you know, it is coming from an animal. Me personally, I do not consider it. But again, that's just my preference. So it is totally up to you what you use. So next we're going to talk about dairy and using that on your transition. So it's divided whether people consider dairy carnivore or not. I mean, it comes from an animal, but then again, you know, it's not really meat and people can add a lot of things to it when it comes to like cheese or things like that. But just for your transition, dairy could be a good substitute for a lot of things. So I do personally drink raw milk. If you live in a state where you have access to raw milk, I highly recommend you try it out. And if it's for you, great. If not, you don't have to. And then if you live in a state where it's hard to obtain, I mean, that's going to be a little more difficult for you. So things like raw milk, some people do heavy whipping cream, some people do cheese. Whatever's going to help you get on the carnivore diet, I think is best for you to use. And then just with cheese, I just be very careful about the cheese you buy. Just try to keep it as natural as possible if you're going to use cheese. And American cheese is probably the worst cheese you can have. It's not really even dairy. And as far as half and half or heavy whipping cream, using those during the transition is perfectly fine and it could help you. But whether you cut them out in the long run, that's going to be up to you. Next, we're going to talk about everybody's favorite, bacon. I would highly recommend using bacon during your transition period. Bacon is delicious. I mean, who doesn't want to eat bacon? However, long term, it might not be the best food to eat regularly. But generally speaking, during the transition, I would highly recommend using it multiple times. It's going to help you transition because everybody craves bacon, but long term, it might not be the best option for you. It is high in omega-6 fatty acids. But during the transition, eat as much bacon as you have to. Next is one of the most important tools I had when I was transitioning to the carnivore diet. Find yourself a good carnivore cookbook. As you can see here, I have this one written by Maria Emmerich and Craig Emmerich. This really helped me through my carnivore transition. I mean, there's all kinds of recipes you can cook that are carnivore. So this is a good tool to have that'll help you cook things to make you feel like you're not on the carnivore diet at all. So I'm not saying you have to buy that one, but I would highly recommend getting some type of cookbook. And then, of course, Reddit, Facebook, YouTube, those are all good places to find good carnivore recipes. So while you're transitioning to carnivore, your body's going to need a lot of electrolytes. Remember, we're shocking the body and undoing 20 years of bad habits. So let's start with the first one, salt. Me personally, I use 2 salts. I use resin salt, which is available at the grocery store or on Amazon. And then I use Baja Gold, which is really salty and I love the taste of it. But it's important that you get in a lot of salt while you're doing carnivore. Salt is essential on this diet. So you find yourself a good quality salt because there's lots of crap salts out there. And then next, I would highly recommend supplementing with magnesium and potassium. So you're going to be shedding a lot of electrolytes, so you're going to want to increase your intake of magnesium and potassium. So me personally, I don't really supplement at all. The only supplement I take is magnesium. And studies show that basically our soil is so depleted of nutrients that everybody's deficient in magnesium. So regardless of what diet you're on, I highly recommend taking magnesium. And then during the transition, I would highly recommend taking potassium too. Outside of magnesium and potassium, and then of course a good salt, I really don't supplement at all in carnivore. If you want to supplement, that's up to you. I know some people are a little concerned about not getting enough vitamin C. So if you want to take a good vitamin C supplement, that's fine. And also if you want to take a multivitamin, you can do that as well. All right, next we're going to talk about sourcing your food. The majority of your food will probably come from a grocery store, and that is perfectly fine. But if you can find a good small farmer's market by your house, even better. This is a great source of excellent food. For me, I have a farmer's market that meets every Saturday. It's about 10 miles from my house. I buy all my raw milk and all my eggs from this farmer's market. But see, the eggs at this farmer's market where I get them, they're corn and soy free. They don't feed their chickens corn or soy. And they're good people too, so I trust them. So I'm getting much better quality eggs from this small farmer's market than I would from a grocery store. But again, if all you can afford is a grocery store, that's just fine. Don't worry about it. But just look around. You probably have a farmer's market that meets sometime during the week. And then for another bonus, if you can get a meat subscription, those are good sources of meat. So I use a meat subscription myself. I know not everybody can do that. It's not cheap. But I know I'm getting good grass-fed quality meat every 2 weeks. You gotta get from the grocery store? That's fine too. Of course, if you have a local butcher market by your house, even better. And then get in good with this butcher because you can probably get like organ meats or cow femur, stuff like that. Next, let's talk about your health during your transition. You're probably going to experience something called the keto flu. If you've been researching carnivore, you might have heard of the keto flu. But what it essentially is your body's going through withdrawals. You're addicted to these processed sugary foods. And right now, when you're cutting them out, your body's craving them. So what is called the keto flu is really withdrawal symptoms. I have gone through withdrawals before, and they are the exact same thing. But just remember about the keto flu, it's temporary. It'll probably last about 3 to 7 days, depending on who you are, but you'll get over it. It's not so bad. If you can do it without medication, that's great. Some examples, you might need to take Pepto-Bismol for your stomach because you're probably going to get diarrhea during your keto flu. And then you might just get achy or something like that, so you might need to take some ibuprofen. But just consult with your doctor and see what's best for you. And then, of course, there's doctor's visits and cholesterol. If you do a blood test while you're transitioning to carnivore or when you're fully on carnivore, you're going to get a blood test and your cholesterol is probably going to be high. Now, I'm no doctor, so I'm not telling you what to do. But for me personally, there's a lot of misinformation about cholesterol. So if your doctor sees your cholesterol is high, they're probably going to scare you about it. But don't freak out. There are several studies out there that say cholesterol and saturated fat are not the culprit for heart disease. One such study is called LDL cholesterol is not the cause of heart disease. I'll link it in the description below. And like I said, there are several studies. And then research Ansel Keys. He's the main doctor who got everyone turned against cholesterol. And then when you look at his background, he was heavily funded by the sugar industry. It's well documented how flawed his study was. Next is alcohol. I would recommend stopping it completely, but at least limit yourself in alcohol. So if you do enjoy some drinks, I would just recommend limiting yourself. And if you are going to drink, I would just recommend sticking to clear liquor. For example, I would drink vodka soda. I mean, that's about as plain as you can get when it comes to drinking. Also, over time, I just lost my desire to drink. I used to drink every weekend. And then slowly, when I started the carnivore diet, little by little, I started drinking less and less. And then before I knew it, I wasn't drinking at all. I just had no desire to anymore. And that was definitely because I went on the carnivore diet. And I'm saying there's anything wrong with having a drink or two. I mean, I still have a drink if we go out to eat or if I'm with friends. I'll enjoy a drink, but I really have no desire. So those are my 40 tips for transitioning to the carnivore diet. I know the transition's hard, but it's definitely worth it. 5 years in, I've never felt better. So if this video helped you, please subscribe and share with a friend who's thinking about doing carnivore. Thanks for watching.